Welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at the World Economic Forum's Global Cooperation Barometer 2025.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That sounds pretty dense.
it is. It's pretty dense. It's got a lot of information about how countries are working together and how they're not working together, and it uses a whole bunch of different indicators.
Like how many?
41 to be
Yeah.
exact, across 5 key areas. These areas are
Okay.
trade and capital flows,
Yeah.
innovation and technology, climate and natural capital, health and wellness, and then peace and security.
So like the whole shebang.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to figure out from this,
Okay.
what are the overall trends? Is cooperation getting better or is it getting worse?
Right.
What's driving these trends, and where are we seeing some exciting progress?
Okay.
And where are things looking a little bit dicey? So
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about this report is that it's not just like vibes,
right.
It's trying to really like nail down and quantify something as complex as global cooperation.
Using data.
Using data, yes.
So not just warm, fuzzy feelings.
No hard data.
Hard data. Okay.
And the data reveals that global cooperation has essentially flatlined since 2020.
Really?
It's slightly above pre-pandemic levels, but considering, all the challenges that we're facing, climate change, pandemics,
Yeah.
it's a little bit concerning that it's not increasing more rapidly.
Yeah, you think that we would all be like, banding together to, fix all these big problems that we have, but
You would think so.
it's not really happening as much as we would hope.
Yeah, and the report actually points to the decline in global peace and security as like the primary factor hindering cooperation,
Okay.
which makes sense if you think about it because,
Yeah.
when there's conflict and distrust,
Right.
it's kind of hard to, come together and,
Right.
on common ground.
Every country for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's a little bit scary
It is a little bit, yeah.
that it's really affecting our ability to cooperate. Okay, well, let's unpack these pillars one by one.
Okay.
Let's start with trade and capital flows. What's going on there?
So we're seeing this interesting trend where money is actually moving around the world faster than ever. Like foreign direct investment is growing faster than the global economy.
Okay, that sounds good.
It sounds good, but there's a catch.
Oh.
Most of the benefits are going to a small group of developed economies.
So not everyone's winning.
Not everyone's winning.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, developing economies are actually losing their share of global manufacturing and foreign direct investment.
Really?
Yeah, and we're seeing a decline in goods trade, particularly from China and other developing economies.
So that's not really good for the global economy as a whole.
Right, it could signal some future problems.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's, kind of a bad situation.
It's not great.
Yeah. Are there any bright spots in this area at all?
Yeah, there is one bright spot. We're seeing a really strong rebound in labor migration and remittances. Like money sent back home by people working abroad.
Right.
So that's a good sign.
So people are still, moving around.
Yeah, they're still connecting.
and helping their families.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is innovation and technology.
Okay.
Now, with all the digital stuff happening,
Right.
you would think this would be like a
It should be great.
booming area for cooperation.
Yeah. And it is to a certain extent, like the digitization of the global economy is definitely fueling some cooperation in this area.
Okay.
One example of this is that lithium-ion battery prices actually fell in 2023,
Oh, wow.
partly due to global collaboration on, innovation and supply chains. So that's good news for electric vehicles.
That is good news because I'm thinking about getting one.
There you go.
So that's great that, this global cooperation is having
It is having an impact.
a real impact.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but is that going to continue?
Well, that's the thing. The report cautions that competition over some of these like really frontier technologies, especially artificial intelligence, could lead to like a global arms race.
An AI arms race, what does that even mean?
Basically, instead of sharing knowledge and working together,
Yeah.
countries might start hoarding their AI advancements
Oh.
and prioritizing their own national interests
Oh.
over the global good. So we're
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
already seeing that.
Yeah.
A decline in cross-border patent applications and R&D spending.
So everybody's just trying to like get ahead.
Yeah, get ahead on their own.
And ultimately that's going to hurt everyone.
Yeah, it's a little short-sighted.
Yeah, it is.
You would think they would get it, but it's
Yeah.
about finding that balance, right?
Right.
Between protecting your own interests and,
And
Then
working
together.
the greater good.
The greater good, exactly.
Okay, well, let's move on to climate and natural capital. How are we doing there?
Okay, so good news here.
Okay, good.
Cooperation is actually improving in this area. And that's being driven by record high climate finance flows.
Okay, so money is going
Money is going towards it.
towards this.
Yeah, towards climate action.
That's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, are we actually doing enough? Are we going to hit those net zero targets?
Well, that's the thing. The report emphasizes that we're still far below the investment needed to actually hit those targets.
So we need more money.
We need more money, basically.
Okay, but it sounds like at least it's going in the right direction.
It is going in the right direction, yeah.
Are there other things happening?
Yeah, so the report highlights the rapid growth of low-carbon technologies,
Okay,
like solar and electric vehicles,
that's good.
which are helping to lower the carbon intensity of the global economy.
Okay,
So that's good news.
so we're getting more efficient.
We're getting more efficient, yeah. But on the flip side, absolute greenhouse gas emissions are still rising.
Oh,
So
so it's not enough.
it's not enough yet.
Yeah, okay, so what are some of the roadblocks here?
Well, the report actually points to protectionist policies in some key economies as a potential threat to
Sure.
reaching a net zero future.
So again, we're kind of back to that national interest thing.
It always comes back to that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on to the next pillar then, which is health and wellness.
Okay.
How are we doing on keeping the world healthy?
Well, the good news is that overall health outcomes,
Okay.
like life expectancy, are generally improving post-pandemic.
That's good.
So,
So that's good.
yeah.
But I mean, does that mean that we've kind of learned from the pandemic and
You would hope so.
we're all cooperating better on global health now?
Yeah, you would hope so, but not necessarily. The report actually warns that this positive trend might not last.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Why is that?
because cross-border health assistance and pharmaceutical R&D spending are declining.
So we could be less prepared for the next pandemic.
Potentially, yeah. It's a real concern.
Oh, that's scary.
It is a little bit scary, yeah. And they even mention the reemergence of Mpox as a case in point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, highlighting how quickly a health threat can reemerge and spread.
Right.
And on top of that, the World Health Assembly, which is like the decision-making body of the World Health Organization, they were unable to agree on a pandemic treaty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So even after all we've been through, we still can't agree
it's pretty concerning.
on how to prevent the next one.
Yeah, it
It
has.
is. Okay, so that's not good.
Not great.
All right, so let's move on to the last one, peace and security.
Huh?
We already know this one's not looking so good.
Yeah, not so good.
But how bad is it really?
Well, this is where the report delivers the worst news.
Okay.
It's the area where cooperation is most clearly failing.
Okay.
Conflicts are on the rise. The number of forcibly displaced people has reached a record high.
Wow.
It's double what it was a decade ago.
Really?
Yeah, and get this. The UN Security Council, who's supposed to be in charge of maintaining international peace and security, they haven't authorized a new peacekeeping mission since 2014.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
That's really bad.
that's a pretty stark statistic.
Yeah. What else is contributing to this decline?
Well, the increasing role of cyber attacks in global conflicts is a major factor.
Oh, so not only are we dealing with,
Regular warfare.
traditional warfare,
Yeah.
but now we've got this like
Digital battlefield.
hidden digital battlefield
Exactly.
to worry about as well.
Yeah, it adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Okay. So what does the report have to say about all of this? Like, what are the implications of this decline in cooperation?
Well, they conclude with a very stark warning.
Okay.
Without greater cooperation,
Yeah.
we risk sleepwalking into an even more unstable and dangerous world.
Oh, that's not what I wanted to hear.
It's not great news.
So it's a pretty dire assessment.
It is.
Okay. So what does this all mean? We've got some areas
Yeah.
where, cooperation is showing some signs of life,
Mhm.
but peace and security is really dragging us down.
It is.
Is there any hope?
There's always hope. But it requires a shift in thinking, like a recognition that the old ways of doing things might not be enough anymore.
Okay, so what's the new way of thinking?
Well, the report advocates for what it calls disordered cooperation.
Disordered cooperation. That sounds kind of like an oxymoron.
Yeah, it sounds a little strange, but basically it means embracing the messiness and finding new, more flexible ways to work together.
Okay, so less about like rigid top-down agreements.
It's that.
More about like, just kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, more nimble bottom-up collaborations.
Okay.
It might involve like forming temporary alliances on specific issues, even with countries that you disagree with on other things.
So being more pragmatic,
Yeah, exactly.
less ideological,
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the shared goals.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, not letting perfection be the enemy of good.
Right. Because even small steps forward.
Especially in areas like peace and security,
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect.
Right. Okay. So do they give any examples of this disordered cooperation in action?
Yeah, they do. They highlight a recent climate initiative that actually bypassed the traditional UN channels and involved these unlikely partnerships between like NGOs, tech companies, developing nations.
Oh, wow.
And they actually achieved some pretty significant progress on a regional level, just through this like flexible, action-oriented collaboration.
So it can work.
It can work.
Okay. And so it's not just up to governments then to make this happen.
No, absolutely not. In fact, the report emphasizes the importance of multi-stakeholder partnerships.
Okay.
Like businesses, NGOs, universities, even individual citizens can all play a role.
So it's really like think globally, act locally,
Exactly.
but like on a much bigger scale.
On a global scale, yeah. And the technology that we have now makes it so much easier to connect and collaborate across borders.
Right. So even though the report is, painting a bit of a bleak picture, it does sound like there's some reason for optimism.
There is reason for optimism.
Maybe this era of disorder can also be an era of like creative problem solving,
Absolutely.
where we find solutions in these unexpected collaborations.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about going back to some idealized past,
Right.
but forging a new path forward.
A new path forward. Okay. I like that.
One that's adaptable, resilient,
Sure.
and ultimately more effective.
More effective. Okay, so as we kind of wrap things up here, what are some key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with today?
Well, first, I think it's important to remember that global cooperation is at a really critical juncture. The trends aren't encouraging, especially when it comes to peace and security.
Right.
But there are pockets of progress, and there's this growing recognition that we need to rethink our approach to cooperation.
You mean to adapt.
We need to adapt, yeah.
Okay.
And this era of disorder that we're in, it presents both challenges and opportunities. It requires us to be more flexible, more adaptable, willing to work with a wider range of partners.
Even people we might not agree with.
Even people we might not agree with, exactly.
Okay.
And finally, fostering this disordered cooperation, it's not just the responsibility of governments.
Right, it's on all of us.
It's on all of us, yeah. Individuals, businesses, organizations, we all have a role to play in building a more cooperative and sustainable world. And they even use this term planned opportunism in the report.
Planned opportunism.
Yeah, like encouraging us to be ready to seize those unexpected moments when collaboration becomes possible.
So be ready to jump on those opportunities.
Exactly.
Be proactive.
So as we're going about our day, keep our eyes peeled for those opportunities.
Yeah.
And just remember that, even small acts of cooperation
Can contribute to a more collaborative future.
can make a difference.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's really inspiring.
Good.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Maybe that's a little bit,
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah. But there's hope.
There is hope.
It's interesting to think about how this like disordered cooperation would actually work in different areas.
Yeah.
Like we talked about peace and security. That's obviously a huge problem. And the UN Security Council isn't really doing a whole lot right now. So how could we use this more flexible approach to address those complex issues?
Well, it might mean kind of shifting away from that traditional model.
Okay.
The large-scale UN-led peacekeeping operations, and maybe moving more towards targeted regional efforts that involve a wider range of actors.
So instead of like one big solution, it's like a bunch of little solutions.
Exactly, like coalitions of NGOs,
Okay.
regional organizations, even private sector actors.
Wow.
All working together to address very specific conflict drivers.
So you really have to get down to like the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, the root causes,
Okay.
like resource scarcity, political instability, things like that.
So it's more about empowering those who are like closer to the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, give them ownership.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it allows for more agility and responsiveness,
Right, because you can adapt.
Exactly, because these conflicts are constantly changing.
They're so complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then what about AI? We talked about the potential for an AI arms race.
That's a big one.
So how can disordered cooperation, help us avoid that?
Well, instead of thinking about AI development as like a zero-sum game, where one country wins, another one loses,
Right.
maybe we could explore frameworks for collaborative research and development.
Okay.
Sharing knowledge and resources.
So everyone benefits.
So everyone benefits, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So some examples of that would be,
Well, we could establish international standards for ethical AI development,
okay.
create shared databases of research findings,
Mm.
maybe even co-fund large-scale AI projects that address, global challenges like climate change or pandemics.
So it's really about thinking outside the box.
Yeah,
And not being limited by these traditional models of cooperation.
exactly. It's not about abandoning cooperation altogether. It's
Yeah.
about evolving it
Evolving it, yeah?
to better suit the world that we live in.
Okay, well, that's a very hopeful way to look at it, I
Yeah.
think. So to wrap up this deep dive into the state of global cooperation in 2025,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Is
Excuse
it?
you.
We've got some areas where there's progress,
Yeah.
and then, we've got peace and security, which is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's really interesting is this idea of disordered cooperation,
I agree.
finding new ways to work together
Yeah,
in this increasingly complex world.
absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that fostering this kind of cooperation, it's not just the job of governments.
Right.
It's something we can all participate in.
So what can we do?
Well, you can support organizations that are working on these global challenges.
Okay.
Engage in dialogue with people from different cultures and backgrounds.
So get out of our bubbles a little bit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stay informed and advocate for policies that promote collaboration.
So there's a lot we can do.
There's a lot we can do.
Even if it's just like little things.
Little things add up.
Yeah. Okay, so as we navigate this crazy world, let's remember that.
The power of cooperation.
Cooperation is key.
It is.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep seeking out those opportunities to make a difference.
Couldn't have said it better.